3 years of beatings and abuse, until a cowboy walked through the door. The station drifted in slow silence around a tired red star, its metal skin glowing faintly from the weak light. From far away, it looked peaceful, like a calm place where travelers could rest. But inside, the halls told a different story. The air always felt heavy, as if the walls themselves were tired of watching what happened within them. Myra Kess walked down a narrow corridor with a toolbox in her hands. Her boots made soft echoes on the metal floor. She kept her head down not because she liked the ground, but because it was safer that way. The overseers liked quiet workers. Quiet workers did not ask questions. Quiet workers did not make trouble. She had been here for 3 years. 3 years of long shifts, strict rules, and endless work that never seemed to lead anywhere better. The alien corporation that owned the station did not shout or strike. They did something worse. They ignored. They cut food rations if someone slowed down. They reassigned people to harder jobs if they spoke too much. They watched through silent drones that floated in corners like metal insects, their small lights always blinking. Myra reached a broken power panel and knelt down. Sparks jumped as she opened it. She worked carefully, her hands steady even though her mind felt tired. Around her, other humans moved through the halls, carrying crates, cleaning vents, checking pipes. No one talked. No one laughed. But inside her jacket, hidden in a small pocket, was a tiny data chip. Every night when her shift ended, Mara copied system logs, camera records, and supply reports onto that chip. She did not know who she would give it to one day. She just knew she could not let everything disappear into silence. A soft hum filled the station as a docking alert sounded. Myra froze for a moment. Visitors were rare. The corporation did not like outsiders. Outsiders asked questions. Whispers moved through the halls like a quiet wind. A ship is coming. Human ship. Independent. Myra stood up and closed the panel. She wiped her hands on her pants and followed the sound of the station's central corridor. Workers slowly gathered, pretending they had jobs to do nearby. Even the overseer drones shifted position, floating closer to the main doors. The airlock opened with a slow hiss. The first thing people saw was dust. It drifted in from the ship's ramp, small clouds of brown and gray from some faraway world. Then a boot stepped onto the station floor. It was worn and scratched like it had walked across 1,000 rough places. The man who followed looked different from anyone Mara had seen in years. He was human, that much was clear. His hair was dark and touched with gray. His coat was long and faded, covered in old patches and marks. On his head was a wide, soft hat, shaped in a way that reminded Myra of old pictures from Earth's past. He paused at the bottom of the ramp and looked around. He did not look afraid. His eyes moved slowly, taking in the workers, the drones, the tight faces, and stiff shoulders. It felt like he was not just seeing the station. It felt like he was reading it. An alien official floated forward on a small platform, its body thin and tall, its skin pale and smooth. Its voice came through a translator, calm and flat. "State your purpose." The man smiled a little. "Name S. Jace Calder," he said. His voice was low and easy like he had all the time in the galaxy. "I run supplies, heard this place could use some." The official scanned him with a small beam of light. "Your ship is not registered with our network," Jace shrugged. "That happens." The official paused, then moved aside. "You will be monitored." Jace tipped his hat. "I'd be disappointed if I was." As he walked into the station, Myra felt something strange in her chest. It was not fear. It was not hope either. It was something in between, like a door she had forgotten about was starting to open. Jace passed her close enough that she could smell the faint scent of oil and old air on his coat. He stopped. "You fix things?" he asked, nodding at her toolbox. Myra blinked. No one had asked her a question like that in a long time. "Yes," she said. Her voice sounded small to her own ears. "Good," he replied. "Stations like this always need someone who knows what's really broken." He walked on, leaving her standing there, heart beating faster than before. Later that cycle, Myra sat alone in the small room she shared with 2 other workers. They were both asleep, curled under thin blankets. The lights were low, and the hum of the station was like a slow, tired breath. She held the data chip in her hand and thought about the man with the hat. She did not know why, but she felt like he was not here by accident. The next day, Jace showed up in the repair bay. Myra was working on a damaged coolant line when she saw him leaning against the wall, arms crossed, watching. "Is this where things get fixed?" he asked. "Or where they get ignored?" She smiled before she could stop herself. Depends who you ask, she said. He walked closer, looking at the open panel and the tools laid out neatly. You've been here a while, he said, not as a question. 3 years, Mara replied. That's a long time for a place that doesn't feel like home. She hesitated, then nodded. Jace lowered his voice. You keep records, don't you? Her hands froze. She looked around. The drones were farther down the hall, their lights pointed away. How do you know? She whispered. He tapped the side of his head. You don't survive the edges of space without learning how to notice things people try to hide. Mara felt her heart pounding in her ears. I'm not here to get you in trouble, he said gently. I'm here because places like this keep going quiet. Ships stop answering calls. People vanish from maps. She took a slow breath. That night she showed him the data. They sat in a dark corner of the storage deck, surrounded by crates and shadows. The chip glowed softly as Jace read through the files on a small screen. His face grew serious. This is bad, he said. Worse than I thought. What will you do? Mara asked. Jace leaned back against a crate and looked up at the metal ceiling. I'm going to make some noise. The next morning, the station woke up to a sound it had not heard in years. A human voice filled the public channel. Attention, everyone on this station, Jace said. This place isn't forgotten, you aren't invisible, and you aren't alone. Overseers rushed to shut down the signal, but the words had already spread. Workers stopped in the halls. They looked at each other, really looked for the first time in a long while. Myra felt tears in her eyes. She did not know what would happen next. She only knew that something had changed. In the docking bay, Jay stood beside his ship, hand resting on the worn metal of its hull. He watched the station lights flicker as systems shifted and voices rose. He smiled under his hat. The dust he had brought with him was still on the floor. But now it felt like the first sign of a storm. The station did not sleep after Jace's message. Even when the lights dimmed for the night cycle, the air felt awake. Workers lay in their small rooms, staring at the ceiling, listening to the soft hum of power lines and the distant movement of drones. Some felt afraid. Some felt excited. Most felt both at the same time. Mara sat on her bunk, holding her boots in her hands instead of wearing them. Her roommate, Lion, watched her from the other bed. You really trust him? Lion asked quietly. Mara thought about the way Jace had looked at the data chip, the way his face had changed from calm to serious. She thought about his voice over the public channel, steady and strong. I don't know if I trust him, she said, but I trust what he saw. Lion nodded slowly. That might be enough. The next morning, the overseers acted like nothing had happened. The drones floated in their usual places. The alien officials gave their normal short commands. The work lists appeared on every screen, full and heavy, but something was different. People made eye contact now, just for a second, a small nod, a quick smile, tiny signs that said, I heard it too. Myra walked to the repair deck, her toolbox swinging at her side. Jace was already there, sitting on a crate and talking to an older man named Tomas, who had worked in the cargo bay since before Myra arrived. When Tomas saw her, he stepped back and pretended to check a panel. Jace looked at Myra and smiled. You ready for another quiet day? He asked. Myra laughed softly. I don't think this station knows what quiet is anymore. They moved deeper into the repair area where the noise of machines made it harder for drones to hear. I need your help, Jace said. With what? She asked. Finding the right people. Myra raised an eyebrow. Right people for what? For fixing things that are more than broken pipes. She led him past rows of tools and parts to a corner where a young woman named Kira worked on a small engine. Kira was fast and clever, always finding ways to make old parts work better than new ones. Kira, Mara said, this is Jace. Kira wiped her hands and studied him. You're the voice. Guilty, Jace replied. Mara took him to meet Tomas, then Lion, then a quiet man named Rook who handled station maps and old data systems. One by one, they talked in low voices, sharing small pieces of the truth. By the end of the shift, Jace had a group. They met in the storage deck again that night. The lights were low and the air smelled like metal and old plastic. Everyone sat on crates in a loose circle. Jace stood in the middle. This station is part of a bigger system, he said. The corporation uses places like this to move people and supplies without anyone asking questions. What you've collected, Mara, proves it. What happens if they find out we're meeting? Kira asked. They already know something's wrong, Jace said. That's why we move fast. Rook leaned forward. Do you have a plan? Jace smiled. I always have half a plan, you all help me build the rest. Over the next few days, the group worked quietly. Mara kept doing her normal job, fixing panels and checking lines, but now every task had a second purpose. She memorized camera paths. She noted which doors took longer to unlock. She learned which power lines fed the drone control system. Kira built small devices from scrap parts. They were simple but smart. They could send short bursts of noise through the station's signal lines. Rook found old access codes buried in forgotten files, codes the corporation never bothered to change. Tomas moved crates around in the cargo bay, hiding tools and wires inside shipments. Jace watched, guided, and listened. One afternoon, an alien official stopped Myra in the hall. "You are working more slowly," it said. Myra forced herself to stay calm. "This section needs extra care. The last failure caused a power drop." The official stared at her for a long moment, its dark eyes unreadable. "Continue," it said, and floated away. Mara let out a breath she did not realize she had been holding. That night, Jace called the group together again. "Tomorrow," he said, "we test the system." "What kind of test?" Lion asked. "The kind where we see how blind they really are." They split up across the station. Myra went to a power hub near the lower decks. Kira hid near a signal relay. Rook stayed by an old terminal in a forgotten office. Jace's voice came through their small communicators. "On my mark," he said. Myra's hands hovered over the panel. Her heart beat so loud she was sure the drones could hear it. "Mark!" She flipped the switch. The lights in the hallway flickered. At the same moment, Kira activated her device. A soft wave of noise rushed through the signal lines. The drones paused, their lights blinking in strange patterns. Rook typed quickly at the terminal, opening and closing doors across the station. For 30 seconds, the station felt free. Then alarms started to sound. "Time to move," Jace said. They regrouped in the storage deck, breathing hard and smiling. "That was amazing," Kira said. "Did you see their faces?" Jace held up a hand. "That was just a test. Now they know someone's pushing back." The next day, the station was locked down. Extra drones filled the halls. Overseers stood at every main junction. Work slowed to a crawl. Mara felt the fear creeping back into people's faces. That night, Jace stood alone in the docking bay, looking at his ship. Mara joined him. "Was this a mistake?" she asked. Jace shook his head. "No. Fear means they care, and if they care, they can be beaten." He turned to her. "You've done something big, Mara, bigger than you know." She looked at the floor. "I just didn't want everything to disappear," Jace smiled. "That's how it always starts." The next morning, the public channel came on again. This time, it was not Jace. It was an alien voice, sharp and angry. "All unauthorized activity will be punished. Any human found interfering with station systems will be removed." The message repeated. People froze in place. Mara felt her chest tighten. Jace's voice came through her communicator. "Meet me in the cargo bay, now." She ran. Crates towered around them as the group gathered. "They're going to start taking people," Kira said. "We've seen this before." Jace nodded. "That's why we don't wait." He pulled out a small device no bigger than his hand. "This," he said, "is a broadcast booster. If we plug it into the main array, your data goes everywhere. Not just one system, not just one sector, everywhere I can reach." Rook's eyes widened. "That will bring attention, a lot of it." "That's the idea," Jace replied. Myra stepped forward. "What do you need from us?" Jace looked at each of them. "I need you to be brave for a little longer." They moved through the station in small groups, using the paths Myra had mapped, the codes Rook had found, the tools Kira had built. The main communication tower rose in the center of the station, tall and quiet. 2 drones guarded the door. Kira tossed a small device down the hall. It made a soft clicking sound. The drones turned toward it. Jace opened the door. Inside, the tower hummed with power. Myra climbed the ladder to the control panel, her hands shaking. "Plug it in," Jace said. She did. The screen lit up. Data flowed. Myra saw her files, her recordings, her notes, all rushing outward like a river. The station shook as alarms blared. Footsteps echoed in the hall. "Go!" Jace shouted. They ran. Behind them, the tower sent its message into the stars. In the docking bay, Jace stopped by his ship. "Whatever happens next," he said to Myra, "you started something no one can stop." Myra looked at the station, at the people running, at the lights flashing. She felt afraid. She also felt strong. The dust on the floor stirred again as the air systems changed. This time, it did not feel like a storm. It felt like a signal fire burning in the dark of space. The station felt like it was holding its breath. After the broadcast, nothing happened right away. The alarms faded. The lights stopped flashing. The halls grew quiet again, but it was a different kind of quiet now. It was the kind that waited. Myra stood near the docking bay doors, her hands wrapped tightly around her toolbox. Jace's ship sat nearby, its engine still warm, its surface marked with scratches and old paint. She wondered if he would leave. She wondered if he could. Jace stood beside her, watching the main corridor. "They heard us," he said. "Now we wait to see who answers." Across the station, people moved carefully. Overseers and drones were still there, but they seemed unsure. Commands came slower. The tight control that once ruled every step now had small cracks in it. Myra walked back to the repair deck. She needed something normal to hold on to. She opened a panel and began checking wires, even though she knew they were fine. A young worker named Eli approached her. "They're talking," he whispered. "Who is?" she asked. "Everyone, on private channels, other stations, ships, people asking what's happening here." Mara felt a small smile form. "Good." That night, Jace called another meeting. They gathered in the same storage deck, but this time more people came. Faces Mara did not know stood in the shadows, listening. Jace raised his voice just enough to be heard. "You sent your story into the stars," he said. "That means you're not alone anymore, but it also means the people who did this to you won't walk away quietly." "What do we do?" someone asked. Jace looked at Mara. She swallowed, then stepped forward. "We keep going," she said. "We don't hide anymore, we help each other, we protect each other." The group murmured in agreement. Rook lifted a small device. "I've been watching the network. Signals are coming in, independent ships, patrol groups, even a few human colonies." "Will they help?" Kira asked. Rook nodded. "They're already talking about it." The next morning, the first ship arrived. It was small and fast, painted in bright colors. It docked without asking for permission. Then another came, and another. By midday, the docking bay was full of ships that did not belong to the corporation. Humans stepped onto the station. Some wore old uniforms, some wore patched coats like Jace. Some carried tools instead of weapons. The overseers tried to stop them. The drones moved to block the doors. Jace stood in front of them. "This station asked for help," he said calmly. "We answered." The drones hovered, unsure. Behind Jace, dozens of humans stood shoulder to shoulder. The drones backed away. Myra felt her chest fill with something warm and strong. She had never seen so many humans in one place before. People from other stations talked with the workers, sharing stories. They spoke of similar rules, similar quiet control, similar disappearances. The truth spread like fire. That afternoon, a large ship appeared on the edge of the station's sensors. It was sleek and dark, marked with the symbol of the corporation. Fear rippled through the crowd. Jace climbed onto a crate in the docking bay so everyone could see him. "This is the part where they try to scare you," he said. "They'll talk about rules and power. They'll tell you to go back to being quiet." The corporation ship sent a message. "All unauthorized vessels must leave. This station is under corporate authority." Jace smiled. Mara stepped forward and opened a public channel. "This station is under human authority now," she said, her voice shaking but clear. "We work here, we live here, we decide what happens here." The crowd cheered. The corporation ship moved closer. But then another signal appeared. And another, human ships, big and small, dropped out of space around the station. The sky outside the viewing windows filled with lights. Jace looked up and laughed softly. "Told you they'd answer." The corporation ship hesitated. A human patrol captain sent a message. "This is a free system," the voice said. "Stand down." The corporation ship turned and left. The station exploded into cheers. People hugged. Some cried. Some just stood still, trying to believe what they were seeing. Mara leaned against the wall, her legs weak. Jace walked over to her. "You did this," he said. "We did this," she corrected. The days that followed felt like a dream. Humans repaired systems properly for the first time in years. Food shipments arrived without cuts or delays. People laughed in the halls. Music played through open doors. Rook set up a new network, open and shared. Anyone could speak. Anyone could listen. Kira taught others how to build her small devices, turning scraps into tools instead of waste. Mara walked through the station, feeling like she was seeing it for the first time. The walls were still metal, the floors still echoed. But now they felt alive. One evening, Jace stood in the docking bay, loading a few supplies onto his ship. Mara found him there. "You're leaving," she said. "Not yet," he replied, "but soon." "Why?" she asked. "You could stay, help build this place." Jace looked at his ship. Places like this don't need someone like me forever, he said. They need people like you. Mara thought about the girl she had been when she first arrived. Quiet, tired, small, she did not feel small anymore. A message came through the network. Another station had risen, then another. Human groups were standing up across the sector. Jace smiled. That's the real victory, he said. The station held a gathering in the central hall. People from different worlds stood together, sharing food and stories. Lights hung from the ceiling, casting warm colors on cold metal. Myra stood in the middle of it all, watching. She felt proud, she felt strong, she felt human. Later that night, she stood at the viewing window with Jace. The stars stretched out in front of them, endless and bright. "What will you do next?" she asked. Jace put his hat back on his head. "I'll go where the quiet still is," he said. "There's always another place that needs a little noise." Mara nodded. "I used to think this station was the whole universe," she said. "Now it feels like the start of something bigger." Jace tipped his hat to her. "That's how it should feel." The next morning, Jace's ship lifted off. People gathered to watch. Some waved, some saluted, some just stood in silence. Mara watched until the ship became a small light and then disappeared into the stars. She turned back to the station. There was work to do, but now it was work she chose. The halls were full of voices. The screens showed messages from across space. The station was no longer forgotten. It was a signal, a sign that humans, no matter how far they traveled, did not disappear. They endured. They stood, they answered when someone called. The station did not feel safe yet. Even with the corporation ship gone, even with friendly ships docked in the bay, everyone knew it was not over. Big powers did not like to lose control. They waited. They planned. And then they came back harder. Myra stood in the command room that used to belong to the overseers. The room looked different now. The sharp symbols were gone. Human screens filled the walls. Rook worked quietly at a console, watching signals from nearby space. "We're seeing movement," he said. "Long range." Jace was still on the station. He had delayed his departure when the first reports came in. He leaned against the wall, arms crossed, calm as ever. "How long?" he asked. "Maybe 2 days," Rook replied, "maybe less." Myra felt a tight knot form in her stomach. 2 days was not much time. The station called a meeting. Workers, pilots, engineers, and visitors filled the central hall. The noise slowly faded as Myra stepped forward. She did not wear a uniform. She wore her old work clothes. But people listened. "We stood up," she said, "and because of that they will come back, not to talk, not to scare, to take this place." A quiet murmur moved through the crowd. "But we are not alone," she continued, "and we are not weak." Jace stepped beside her. "They think this is just a station," he said. "A dot on a map. They think you're tired, scared, and easy to break." He paused. "Let's prove them wrong." Planning started immediately. The station was not a warship. It did not have big guns or heavy armor. But it had people who knew every bolt, every wire, every hidden path. Mara led teams through maintenance tunnels, mapping routes that ship scanners could not see. Kira worked with engineers from other ships, turning her small devices into larger systems. They did not destroy. They confused, they blinded sensors, they made enemy systems see things that were not there. Rook rewrote station software, turning old safety systems into shields and alarms. Tomas and the cargo crews moved massive containers into place, creating barriers and cover in the docking bay. Jace trained volunteers in simple flight patterns, teaching them how to fly together, how to protect each other, how to run if needed. "We're not here to be heroes," he told them. "We're here to survive." The hours passed fast. Ships arrived and left, carrying messages and supplies. Some brought bad news. The corporation was gathering a fleet. Mara barely slept. She walked the halls, checking on people, answering questions, calming fears. Every now and then, someone would stop her just to say thank you. It made her uncomfortable, but it also made her stronger. On the second day, the sensors lit up. "They're here," Rook said. The main screen showed space filling with dark shapes. Corporate ships, more than before. The station went quiet. Mara stood straight. All teams moved to positions. The friendly ships spread out around the station, small compared to the corporate fleet. But they moved with purpose. A message came through. "This station is under violation of corporate law. Surrender control immediately." Jace looked at Mara. She nodded. Rook opened the channel. "This station is free," Mara said. "Leave." For a moment there was silence. Then the corporate ships moved. The battle did not start with explosions. It started with noise. Kira's systems activated. Sensors flickered, targets duplicated, signals crossed and tangled, corporate ships slowed, unsure. Then the human ships moved, they did not charge. They flowed, small groups darted in and out, drawing attention, pulling ships away from the station. Inside the station, systems shook as shields powered up. Myra watched the screens, her heart racing. A loud impact echoed through the hull. "They've fired!" someone shouted. The station held. Another hit, still held. Jace's voice came through the channel. "All fighters, pattern 3, keep them busy." A corporate ship broke formation, chasing a small human craft. That was the opening. Rook triggered the station's old mining emitters, repurposed and redirected. They fired not to destroy, but to push. The corporate ship spun away, systems overloaded. Cheers erupted in the command room, but the battle was far from over. A larger corporate ship moved forward, ignoring the smaller distractions. "It's heading straight for us," Rook said. Myra felt fear wash over her. Jace was already moving. "I'll take care of it," he said. Before she could stop him, he was gone. His ship launched from the bay, engines burning bright. It flew straight toward the massive corporate vessel. "Jace, don't," Myra whispered. On the screen, his ship looked tiny. The corporate ship fired. Jace dodged, flying through debris and signal ghosts created by Kira's systems. He stayed close, too close for the big ship to target properly. "Come on," he muttered to himself. He flew along the hull, matching speed, slipping into blind spots only an experienced pilot would know. Then he released his cargo. Not weapons, beacons. They latched onto the corporate ship, broadcasting its location and identity across every open channel. Across space, independent fleets saw it. Human patrols saw it. Everyone saw who was attacking a free station. The corporate ship hesitated, then it pulled back. One by one, the rest followed. The fleet turned away. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then the station shook with cheers. People hugged. Some fell to the floor, laughing and crying at the same time. Mara covered her mouth with her hand. "They're leaving," Rook said softly. Jace's ship returned, damaged but flying. When it docked, Mara ran to the bay. He stepped down the ramp, tired, smiling. "You're insane," she said, her voice shaking. He tipped his hat. "Worked, didn't it?" She hugged him before she could think. For the first time, he looked surprised. The days after the battle were quiet again, but this time the quiet felt earned. Messages flooded in from across the sector. Support, thanks, promises. The corporation issued statements, threats, then silence. They did not come back. The station began to change. People formed councils. Systems were renamed. New rules were written, simple ones, fair ones. Myra found herself in meetings more than repair bays. One evening, she stood alone in the hall where she had once kept her head down. She stood tall now. Jace joined her. "You did it," he said. "We did," she replied. He nodded. "I think my work here is done." She felt that familiar tightness in her chest again. "You're really leaving this time?" "Yes," she took a breath. "Thank you," he smiled. "For what?" "For walking through that door." Jace looked around the station, alive with voices and light. "Sometimes," he said, "all it takes is reminding people who they are." The stars outside burned bright. The station stood free. The station woke up to sunlight for the first time in a long while. Not real sunlight, of course. The red star still hung far away, quiet and distant. But the light inside the station felt warmer, brighter. People moved through the halls with easy steps instead of tired ones. Voices echoed, not whispers, not orders, but conversations. Myra stood at the wide window in the central hall and watched ships come and go. Some were small and fast. Some were big and slow. All of them came freely now. She remembered the first day she arrived here. She had carried a single bag. Her eyes had stayed on the floor. She had felt like the station was a cage. Now it felt like a home. The council met that morning in the old overseer room, which had been changed into a simple meeting space. The walls were clean. The sharp symbols were gone. A circle of chairs filled the center. Myra took her seat. Rook sat across from her, tapping notes into a small screen. Kira leaned back in her chair, boots crossed, smiling at something Tomas was saying. They were not leaders because someone gave them a title. They were leaders because people trusted them. Rook cleared his throat. "We've received 3 new requests," he said. "Stations near the outer edge want help setting up open networks. They heard what happened here." Mara nodded. "We'll help them," Kira grinned. "Looks like we're starting a trend." The meeting ended with quiet laughter and simple plans. Nothing big, nothing fancy, just people helping people. Later, Mara walked through the repair deck. She still liked being there, the sound of tools, the smell of metal and oil. It reminded her of who she had been and who she still was. A young worker named Eli waved at her. "You coming to the gathering tonight?" Mara smiled. "I wouldn't miss it." The gathering was for Jace. Word had spread that he was leaving, really leaving this time. The central hall filled with people. Someone played music from an old speaker. Tables were set up with food from a dozen different worlds. Jace stood near the edge, trying to look invisible and failing. Mara walked over to him. "You don't like crowds," she said. He shrugged. "I like places better when they don't need me anymore." She understood that. People took turns talking. Some thanked him, some told stories, some just nodded at him with quiet respect. Tomas raised a cup. "To the man who walked through a door and made noise." Laughter and cheers followed. Jace tipped his hat. When the gathering ended, the hall slowly emptied. The lights dimmed. The station settled into a calm hum. Mara and Jace walked together toward the docking bay. The path was quiet. "You don't have to go," she said again, even though she knew the answer. Jace stopped and looked at her. "This place is strong now," he said. "Stronger than it knows. If I stay, I become part of the walls, a symbol. I don't want to be that." She nodded slowly. "Where will you go?" she asked. Jace smiled. "Wherever the quiet is loudest." They reached his ship. It looked the same as always, scratched, patched, honest. Myra held out a small device. "What's this?" he asked. "A network key," she said. "It connects to every free station we've helped, every place that's standing up. You'll never really be alone out there." Jace took it, his smile softening. "Thank you," he said. They stood in silence for a moment, then Mara spoke. "You changed my life." Jace shook his head. "You changed your own. I just opened a door." She laughed softly. "You always say that." "Because it's true." He climbed the ramp. Before he disappeared into the ship, he turned back. "Keep it free," he said. "I will," she replied. The ramp closed. The ship powered up. Myra stepped back as it lifted off, light filling the bay. The ship moved slowly at first, then faster, then became a bright point against the stars. She watched until it was gone. The station felt different without him. Quieter, but not empty. The days turned into weeks. Mara stayed busy. The station grew. New sections opened. New people arrived. Messages came in from far places. A mining colony that had broken free. A trade route that now ran open and fair. A small station that had painted a symbol on its hull, a star-worn hat. Above the words, "Humanity endures." Mara stood in the command room one day reading the messages. Kira leaned against the door. "Looks like your friend started a legend." Mara smiled. "He would hate that." "Probably," Kira agreed. The station became a hub. A place where people came to talk, to trade, to rest, to plan. Mara walked the halls, greeting faces she knew and faces she did not. She still carried her toolbox. She still fixed panels and lines when she could. She never wanted to forget what it felt like to be just another worker in the hall. One evening, she stood at the same window where she had once watched Jace's ship leave. A young girl stood beside her. "Is it true?" the girl asked. "Is what true?" Myra replied. "That one man stood up to a whole fleet." Mara thought about the story. "He didn't stand alone," she said. "He stood with a lot of people who were tired of being quiet." The girl nodded, thinking about that. The stars outside were bright. Life on the station settled into a rhythm, not perfect, not easy, but free. One day, a message came through the network, a voice Mara recognized, Jace. "Just passing through a place that needed a little noise," he said. "Thought you'd like to know." Mara laughed. She sent a message back. "Take care, Cowboy." The legend grew. Some said he flew through storms. Some said he never lost a ship. Some said he could make a station change just by walking into it. Mara knew the truth. He was just a man who believed people were stronger than they thought. Years later, the station held a celebration, not for a battle, not for a victory, but for a promise. Myra stood in front of a crowd that filled the central hall. "This place was once forgotten," she said. "It was quiet, it was small, it was afraid." She paused. "Now it is a light." Cheers rose. She looked around at the faces, old friends, new friends, families, children. She felt proud. That night, she walked alone through the halls. The same halls where she once kept her head down. Now she walked tall. She stopped at a wall where someone had painted a symbol. A hat, a star, simple words, "Humanity endures." Myra touched the wall. She did not know where Jace was. She did not know what challenges waited in the stars, but she knew this. Humans would not disappear into silence. They would speak. They would stand. They would help each other. The station hummed around her, alive and free. Outside, the red star burned softly. And across the dark of space, in places both quiet and loud, the story of a cowboy who walked through a door and reminded people who they were continued to travel, not as a tale of one man, but as a promise. That no matter how far humanity went, no matter how small or tired or forgotten a place became, someone would always stand up and say, "We are still here."